Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm right, thanks. You?
I'm doing well.
Nice to
I'm not
meet
gonna.
you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, Mr. Nolan. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty nervous right now, so I'm just kind of free.
Don't worry. Chill out. I just
Um,
want to listen to what your thoughts are. So, where do you want to begin then?
I guess to lay it out, I'd probably just have to start with like childhood and kind of go on from there.
Yeah,
So I
cool.
so I so I came from a Catholic family. My mom had 10 kids with us, so 10
Wow, yeah.
kids. Yeah, my dad wasn't very active in like the religious duties, so he never came to church with us, or he went when my older brothers were and my older sisters, but when it got down to me, because I'm like in the middle child, I'm number six. So my mom kind of dragged us to church every Sunday, and she did her best and all that stuff. My dad was like an alcoholic, and he was dealing with like childhood traumas and things like that. So essentially, going up to that, I felt like as a young child, going up to like 13, 14, I had a pretty good childhood. And then seemingly out of nowhere in my eyes when I was 14 they got divorced and my dad moved out of the house. And so I was kind of angry at my mom and confused about how why everything was happening because in my house I was like, oh no, my friends are getting divorced, my friends parents are getting divorced and such, but that won't happen to me, right? And then when it happened it kind of felt surreal. And kind of fast forward from that, a few months afterwards we moved into town while my dad was living at our camp and such, and it was just a confusing time for all of us. But I won't mess you with all the details. Anyways, initially it was just a hard time because I was when I was going to a new school with a new home life, a new house too. So everything was kind of crumbling apart in my young 14-year-old's eyes. And so I was just trying to, stay sane and somewhat. So I kind of just kept to myself, grinding on the video games because the one positive of moving into town was we actually had access to fast internet. So I would just go online, go into the basement, and just play video games all the time. And
How many
it-
hours are we talking? So, you get home from school and then what, you're straight on the gaming?
yeah, actually, I would get home from school and it would be straight to there. I would get off school like 2:15, come back and just play till nighttime pretty much. My mom would call us, "Hey, supper's ready." Go up, eat, come back down. Completely isolated from the whole household because everyone was kind of confused. And in my family, we grew up in a very no one talks about our feelings, right? It's hard to open up and say, well, like what's wrong, what's going on, talk to us. So we kind of just internalized everything, and so that kind of came out in more destructive behaviors. So at school, it'd be like antisocial, kind of just earbuds in all the time, kid in the back of the class, that type of thing. The stereotypical troubled child.
So, not really talking to many people at school either.
No, I was extremely antisocial, and so I didn't really make any friends. And to this day, I'm 21 now. I got out of college in April of 2021, so I still don't have any friends, to be honest. Um, there's multiple reasons for that, though. Not only like my anxious kind of scared of people type of thing, but also just I was raised to be a certain way, being a good Catholic, Christian. And so all my friends seem to be secular, going to parties, drinking, all that stuff, girls, all that type of thing. So I was like, well, I don't know anything else but to be this person, right? This good person. And because even if my mom's like going out with my bowling coach, right? Because she was at the time after, soon after we moved out, I just, I didn't know how to relate to other people my age because everyone was secular. So because I mostly kept to myself, but when I grew up with my childhood friends, they all went to a different high school, so I was completely alone in high school, so I didn't know what to do. So I kind of just kept to my studies, did well in school, and then just kind of shunned everyone else and just kind of stuck to video games.
So, how long are we talking of playing video games for? What is it, like 4 hours a night? Is that around right?
Probably longer than that, unless probably like 6 or 7, just
Right. Is
nonstop. Because
that what about weekends?
weekends, I did my best to go visit my dad because it was only a few months afterwards that we moved out that I found out my dad actually moved into the old place that we were in. So initially my dad moved out and my mom stayed at the house, but when she moved out, she just left the house to be kind of taken by the state essentially. So when my dad figured this out, he's like, "Oh, hold on." And then when they went to talk to the lawyers and all that stuff, he's like, "I'm gonna take the house now," and all that stuff. So luckily that got sorted. Anyways, he moved in there, and when I found that out, I'm like, "Well, I don't want to live with the, at the time, cheater mom is what I would call her essentially. Not to her face, obviously, but just kind of like I felt kind of that betrayal. So my dad gets kicked out by my mom, and I can't understand why. And now she's dating our old bowling coach, and I'm like, okay, this is BS. I don't want to live with you, you know? I don't know why. So I just kind of felt this vitriol against her, even though she treated us better in a sense where she was like always caring, like, oh, how are you doing? In that sense, except when it comes to the divorce, which is like our main issue, right? So we kind of just didn't talk really. And I don't think she really cared, it seemed, because anytime she would talk to us, it would just be about, oh, how's school? And she kind of just completely ignored the fact that our family's been uprooted. And I think it was like a coping method on her part. And so I kind of understand it, but it's been like 7, 8 years now, and she's still like that. So I don't really
So
talk. I don't talk to her anymore.
you don't talk to your mom now?
No.
How about your
Um,
dad?
right. I was gonna get to that. So he was an alcoholic, right? So he had liver cirrhosis for 5 to 6 years. And 2 years ago on May in 2021, he died. And
Sorry to hear that.
yeah, so yeah, that was tough. Because essentially I was like, okay, so mom sucks. In my younger brain, I was like, oh, mom sucks, but at least I have dad to go to, right? I'll take dad's side and everything will be fine. And I would kind of go over there, but obviously my mom left my dad for reasons. He was an alcoholic, he was kind of narcissistic, and so I was always trying to gain his approval. And I never felt like I was enough, so but I knew his diagnosis and I knew he could die at any moment, essentially. And I also knew he was drinking too, even though he's not supposed to on the liver protocol, because he was going to dialysis 3 times a week. And so I would just go visit him on weekends as much as possible and try to convince my other siblings to like, hey, let's go visit dad, even though they didn't want to because he was so negative and there wasn't fast internet there. And that seems kind of trivial, but with kids nowadays and their like addiction to technology, it seems trivial, but it's not, especially when you're dealing with a negative father. But anyways, I would just get to kind of do my best to go see him. And months before he died, I kind of stopped going to visit him because we had this big fight um,
You
about
want to tell
something
me?
stupid.
You tell me what it was about?
Yeah, it's usually revolves around work because every time we go visit, it's like, hey, you want to do this, or hey, you want to split some wood, or stoke the fire, or do dishes, clean the house, and it's like, I came to visit you, Dad. Like, I'll help and do that stuff, but like, it was like the first thing we did when we arrived, kind of thing. So I didn't feel like I was there to be a visit. Hey, Dad, how's it going? It was kind of like, hey, go do this, or go do this. I was like, oh. And anytime I'd be like, "Hey, you want to play a board game?" Or talk about stuff. It was always the negativity about the nurses at the hospital, the doctors, the banks after me, that type of stuff. And he didn't really want to talk about anything positive. And he didn't. I don't feel like he wanted to spend time with me either. Um,
Why do you think that?
uh it's just his attitude, honestly, because he always complains that his kids don't love him or didn't love him. And so, oh, that's why I didn't want to come visit. But he could never, because he had narcissistic tendencies. He
Mm.
um he always blamed others. He never took the forethought of, oh, maybe I need to stop being so negative and reach out to my kids instead of complaining that they're not here. So he just didn't have that foresight, I guess, because my dad had a rough life, and
Yeah, what was his relationship with his dad like?
well, similar to mine, his dad died of lung cancer when he was 16 years old, so wasn't too far from where I am at. I was 21 when my dad died, and my grandfather would beat my dad, and in the words of my grandma, is like, we don't talk about those times. Essentially, it's kind of like a hush hush in that era of they did questionable things for discipline, and they don't want to talk about it in this age.
So the first thing you said about your mom was that you felt angry at her when the divorce happened. And I guess you're still feeling a bit angry now if you don't talk to her.
Honestly, the divorce didn't really, obviously that affected me, but it was more the secrecy behind her dating my old bowling coach
Mm.
and not talking to us about it. It's like,
That's where the anger came from.
right. And yeah, so she just, she didn't feel like it was necessary to talk about, right? She's just like, okay, we're divorced. We moved out. If my kids have a problem, they'll come talk to me. And if no one comes talk to me, I'm gonna act like nothing happened. And so whether that's what she thought, that's kind of how we took the situation. So she would just go out, okay, guys, there's supper on the counter. I'm going out for the weekend, so just don't kill each other and whatever. Essentially is what she did. And to this day, it's still the same thing. Like my older sister moved out, still has a lot of kind of vitriol against my mom. And same thing with me. I moved out. It'll be a year in late February now with my younger brother who's 19. And to this day, she can't take any blame for what happened, and she refuses to take responsibility on how we felt about it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'll add to the fact that she also got married and had my former bowling coach move in with us, which is why I moved out. And so because of this, she felt, and the reason she gave was because we complained about that. We protested that because like I don't want him to move in with us because one, we haven't even hung out with him or talked to him. You haven't introduced him to the family. You've just been dating in secrecy for 5 years, and now all of a sudden you're gonna get married and have him live with us full time. It's like that. There's no way. And I didn't directly do that because it was a too difficult conversation for me to have. But my older sister and my some of my other siblings talked about it to my mom, and she just cried about it, saying like, "Don't you guys want me to be happy?" Essentially, right? And it's like this modern quip of happiness is the number one thing in life. And my response to that was like, so you're choosing your own happiness over the well-being of your children, essentially. And so I was like, okay, and you're this lost 5, 6, 7 years later, and you're still acting like nothing happened. I can't talk to you. I'm sorry.
Were you angry at your dad as well?
Yeah, yeah, I was angry, but the reason I kind of took his side because of like being a guy and thinking about, oh, if my wife kicked me out and started dating the bowling coach while you were out of the house, essentially living on your own, I empathized more with my dad in that situation, even though I knew full well that he had some problems too. But if I outweighed the whole things, I kind of took a preference to my dad
Mm.
because he was kind of like the victim in that scenario. Um,
So did you tell your dad that you loved him when you were going to visit him if you were angry at him? Or did you just assume that he knew that?
it was kind of a love-hate relationship in a sense where like every time there would be an argument, there'd be like a wall of texting. Oh, why'd you effing do this? And, da, da, da. And I'd be like, oh, you don't care, whatever. And then like a week or two later, it'd be like, hey, XOXO, I love you. Are you gonna come visit? Question mark and that type of thing. And I'd be like, yeah, sure, I'd love to come visit. And we'd kind of hash it out a little bit, and then everything
Mm.
would be fine. And then it would blow up again, and then the cycle would kind of continue. But when he was in the hospital all of a sudden, and he was having major organ failure for kidney and liver. I kind of just went up to his room with one of my siblings because it was COVID at the time, so we only allowed two of us in the room and not 10 in the room at once. So that was kind of shitty. Um, but as I went up there and I could just see him in this state, and I was like, I've never seen my dad look this weak and like out of it. And obviously he was on like major pain meds too, so that's understandable. But I looked at that and I asked my brother Frankie, I was like, does he have any chance? Like, is he gonna make it? And he just kind of looked at me and like he didn't know what to say. And I kind of initially knew like he's not gonna make it. And I was just looking at him while he was alive. And I just started, bawling my eyes out and just saying, I love you, Dad. I'm sorry for everything. And, I wish that we could, spend more time together. And I just cried for like nonstop for like 10 minutes until the nurse told us, okay, you have to leave. You have to let your other siblings come up to, you know, say goodbye or say hello to your dad. And so when I left, I kind of looked at the door. I said, I love you and I'll talk to you tomorrow. And then when I went to bed that night at 3 in the morning, I got a call from my sister-in-law and she called me and I was fearing this phone call because she just said, I'm like, hello? And she's like, hey, Stefan. I'm like, hey. I'm like, what's going on? And she's just like, your dad passed away. And I was like, okay. And I just kind of hung up and I was like, I didn't know what to do. I just sat there. I couldn't even cry either. I wasn't crying. I was just like, this isn't real. Like initially like denial, the 5 stages of grief. And so I walked out to my brother to tell everyone what happened, and everyone got the call one after the other, and then we were kind of all arranged together. It was 3 in the morning. And I couldn't stand my thoughts alone, so I put on music, but my dad only listened to classic rock music, and that's all I listened to because I kind of wanted to relate to my dad in that way. But I couldn't listen to that music because it just reminded me of him and it would hurt so much. So I kind of just put on rap music that I never listened to, and I kind of just tried to get my mind off it. And that was worst day of my life, essentially. So yeah, and things kind of went down from there. And
Well, you
that's
you told him the stuff that was in your heart and you wanted him to hear, and he knew that you meant it and that you loved him. So even if he felt like you didn't or that your siblings didn't, you told him that you did, right?
yeah, we told him all the time. Like every time I visit him, I'd give him a hug and say, "I love you, Dad," and he'd say, "I love you too," and then we'd leave, and we'd always say it, but it's it didn't feel like it, right? Because words don't really mean anything if show if you act a certain way. Love isn't a word; it's a it's a way you behave. It's willing the good of the other person. So when my dad died, I felt no consolation from my mom because what's my mom gonna say? She got divorced and we're living with her new husband now, so it's just kind of awkward talking about dad and crying about him, especially when he's in the room. And so that's when I went off the deep end, and I downloaded Tinder and all that stuff. I'm like, I don't care, because at this point I was just suicidal. I was just, I don't want to be alive anymore.
And that came quickly after your dad died, or was it something that was in the background before?
Uh, the Tinder aspect and just kind of,
You're feeling that bad, feeling
yeah,
suicidal.
yeah, no, that was I felt that way in like 11th grade when I was like 16, 17 too, and I was just listening to a lot of Nirvana and kind of grunge music. And at this point, I kind of had a flashback to when I was like 12 or 11. I was like, why do people kill themselves? Like, I don't understand why people kill themselves. Like, life isn't that bad, right? And I remember telling myself when I was thinking back to that, I was like, oh, you don't know anything. And then I just thought of that and I was like, I didn't know what to do with this information because I was like, it just felt like I've never felt that way before because I've been a fairly positive person in my life, and it just pessimism and depression and despair took me over. And that's honestly that's a good thing though because that's kind of started my like faith journey in a sense. Because 2 years before my dad died, I started going to church with my older brother who was religious, and I believed it to be true in my head. I just couldn't feel it in my heart because of all the negativity that I was going through, especially from my Catholic mom and how she could have like betrayed my dad in that sense. And I held this negativity towards her and the church for allowing the divorce and annulment to happen. So I was confused on everything, but intellectually I believed it was true. So I just kept going and I was like, okay, that's fine. But when my father died, I just couldn't bear to go back. Um, yeah.
What was the main thing keeping you from going back? Did you still believe it intellectually?
Honestly, I didn't even believe it. I think I did. I just didn't care. I was like, you know what, God, I don't care if it's true or not. You put me through so much crap. My family's broken. My mom doesn't care. My dad, I felt like my dad didn't care, and now he's dead, and I have nothing going for me. I have no friends. I'm still going to college for a job, even though I don't trust women and I don't want to get married. So I'm like, why am I alive? It's so pointless to me. And so that's when I just kind of went off the deep end and, I started drinking, like, getting drunk for like 2 months straight after that, just beers and beers and alcohol. And in this time, that's when I was going on Tinder and kind of, sleeping around and that type of thing. And looking back, I regret ever doing that because now that I'm kind of sort of back on the straight and narrow, I'm just like, wow, you're an idiot. Um, because now I just don't really know what I'm supposed to do because I'm like, I have all these issues, all these things I've done in the past, the smoking weed, the mushrooms, like the psychedelics, right? And all these things I've done in my past, and like they didn't help me. It was just a kind of an escape from my life, essentially. And it just made me feel worse and worse and worse. And so now that I'm out of it, essentially, I'm still stuck to the same kind of feelings I've had before I started doing all this stuff. I'm just kind of sober now, and I don't have a toxic girlfriend to deal with anymore. Um, because I guess we could get into that since I was mentioning the relationship. But soon after my dad died, I went on Tinder and I, slept around that stuff. But one girl I met, um, she had a kid, a single mom, and it was just supposed to be kind of like a friends with benefits type of thing. And we hung out, but she was really like attached to me and she wanted to see me all the time. And I felt like addicted to that because I didn't feel any love before, or I haven't felt it before, and especially with like the sex and all that stuff, you're kind of just bonded to that person. And so this she kind of convinced me because I was told like no, I'm not getting into a relationship. I'm a mess right now, and she kind of convinced me otherwise. And I was how they say don't make any big life decisions when after a loss. That's kind of what happened to me, and I was just like, okay, you know what, fuck it. And then I went there, and I was sleeping at her place pretty much the whole time. And then, long story short, she was just toxic, always bitching, and essentially the relationship wasn't good at all. There was nothing positive about it. It was just like sex, pretty much. And that seems to be a common theme. That's why the whole saying of don't have sex before marriage. That makes sense, not just on a sensical level, but it's also good to weed out horrible women because everyone could see it because I got so far with her that I went to like meet her to my older brother who was like religious at the time and like yeah my whole family met her and they were all telling me oh there's something off about her and I was just like oh no it's nothing but then after she kind of cheated on me and I broke it off right away because I'm like I'm not dealing with that, right? Looking back I'm like I was the biggest idiot in the world. So yeah. But after that happened, I was like, all right, that's fine. But again, I kept going at it, still going on Tinder, and but this time I was like, okay, for sure, no relationships, for sure, for sure. And then I kept going until eventually, I just I tried doing sober October. So at this point, I wasn't really drinking after I left my ex because she was an alcoholic too. So I kind of stopped drinking myself, but I was smoking weed every day to like relax and kind of go to bed every night. But I felt like I was being like getting addicted to it, and I didn't want to be addicted to anything because I knew that's where my father went wrong when he was younger. So I did sober October. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll feel better if I do this, and I did it, and I was like, okay, wow, I actually feel pretty good. And I told my religious brother this. He's like, oh, that's good to hear. Because I always told him like, oh, I can't stop. I gave the excuse like I can't stop smoking weed because I need it for sleep. It's my relaxation. Otherwise, I kind of go nutty. But after I made it like a challenge where like I was watching it on Joe Rogan or something, he was like, yeah, sober October, no alcohol, no weed, just straight nothing. I was like, okay, well, once you challenge yourself, you're like, okay, from the first to the 31st, nothing. I was like, okay, I could do that, no problem. And it was actually easy. After a week or so, my sleep got better, everything got better, and I was like, wow, because I always justified like I can't go to church if I'm smoking weed every day, right? Because then I felt like a hypocrite. So and then I'm like, I'll go back to church now because there's nothing holding me back. There's no girls. There's nothing. There was just my hatred pretty much against my mom, really, that was holding me back because of the annulment and like the divorce and how the church allowed that. And that was it. But then I kind of said like, listen, when Jesus said to the disciples, will you leave me too? And they said, you know, but to Lord, to whom shall I go? I left. I left for like a year, and it just brought me pain and regret and problems. So now that it wasn't smoking weed anymore, even though I have these kind of issues against the church and my mom, I was like, I don't have any other option, right? So I started going back, and it's been like this has been fairly recent actually, because sober October was only last month, so it's been recent that I've gotten into it, and I've started watching you and Timothy Gordon and all these guys, and kind of getting back into the routine of being a responsible man and virtuous and kind of get your life together. And so now I'm just now it's stuck to me right here today. So sober stuff, no worries here. But now I just the reason I want to discuss talking to you is I don't know how to deal with my mom. Like I don't know what the church teaches about a parent that kind of ignores all the trauma that they've put their kids through. And I can forgive her, but I don't know how I can reconcile and kind of visit her, right? Like I don't know what the virtuous thing to do in that situation, especially when she doesn't recognize any fault on her part.
What would you say to yourself going back to when you first started feeling really angry at her with an adult's perspective now, thinking of yourself as a kid then, things you might not have understood? You've hinted at it a couple of times, saying that you sided with your dad, but you realize now that your mum probably went through a lot as well.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
we try to see it from her perspective, because I remember you were saying about how some of her behavior was probably partly a way for her to cope because her whole life's falling apart too, right?
yeah.
Now, what did you need at the time that she didn't give you? And what could you
Ex-
say to yourself then about why she wasn't doing it?
Well, in my eyes, even now, like this is my advice to her now, because I still feel the same way I did when I was a kid. It's just I'm more of an adult now, so I kind of have a mature understanding of it, especially having a girlfriend as an ex in the past. But now I'm just like the same thing I would ask for her to do today is just can you acknowledge the pain you put me through and kind of just give me a reason as to what happened? right? Because everything seemed fine to me at the moment. All of a sudden, oh, we're getting divorced, and we left, and now she's dating someone else. So it just moved so fast, and we had no details about the divorce. Like, why is Dad gone? Why aren't you in the same house anymore? Just a description as to the whole thing, how it happened. Because to this day, I'm still out of the loop onto how everything folded. All I know is based on what my older brother told me and what my dad's side of this equation was. So I really don't know. The only thing I could boil down to it is my dad was narcissistic, alcoholic, and my mom couldn't deal with it anymore. And she was kind of talking to the old bowling coach that we bowled with, and that's kind of how she started getting emotionally intimate with him, and that's probably how the ball started rolling.
Mm.
But other than that, that's the only thing that I could get, and we have no explanation to this day as to why she did what she did.
So is it the lack of explanation that you're angry about mainly, or is it the fact that she didn't seem to appreciate how much it hurt you at the time and still hurts you now?
I would say it's not realizing how bad it hurt us because I brought it up before, and just in a state. I did this when I was drunk because I was just drinking in my room at the time. I had like 6 shots, and I was just like, I walk up to my mom and I just lay down on the floor and just started crying at her feet. I was like, I don't want to live anymore, right? It's like I don't know what to do anymore. I miss how things used to be, and all she could really say was like, I'm really sorry to hear what you say. And she's just kind of like, I'm always here for you. But she didn't want to get into the whole reason as to why I was crying at her feet. I was just crying out of the loss of my family unit that was taken from me. And she didn't seem to want to, say sorry and give in. She just kept holding this kind of image of, oh, I'm sorry you're going through a tough time, but there's nothing I could do. I'll pray for you and that type of thing. It's just, if you need counseling, I'll talk to you. And that was the last thing I wanted to hear because it's like, I don't need counseling. I need an explanation from you, right? I need empathy from you, my mother, as to why things went haywire. Uh, and yeah, that was essentially it. And since that day, I just don't bother. I'm like, I can't open up to you if you're just gonna shut me down and tell me to go get counseling because I have a psychological issue. It's like, I do, I guess, but it's more like a relationship issue. Because if my mom was out of the equation, like against my will, I feel like it would be a lot easier because it's like, she moved across the country, I can't see her. But the fact that she's 10 minutes away and I can see her whenever, I feel guilty as a Christian, trying to be, practicing again, that I need to have a relationship with this person that I love so much, but felt has betrayed and hurt me so much that I can't do that anymore.
What do you think she could say to you that would be an adequate answer? We know something pushed her to breaking point, right? We know
Remember?
she couldn't go on as it was,
Yeah.
and you can sympathize with that, yeah?
Yeah. And she suffered a lot. And I do appreciate that.
So if we go beyond that, we know she was at breaking point and people have their limits, and
Yeah.
she was asking you if you were okay. And when you were crying at her feet drunk, it hurt her to see that. And she might have not wanted to open up too much because it might have been even more painful for her. If you're right that some of her coldness or the way she was dealing with things was trying not to feel them too deeply, she might have been standing there feeling a lot more than you realized at the time. So, what I'm getting listening to you is she was probably lonely quite a lot of the time and feeling a bit confused and scared, and her life was falling apart. I've got an image of a woman who's at breaking point here. And even if you found out, for example, that I don't know, let's say your dad, not saying he did, but what if he cheated on her? for example. Now,
Right,
how would
right.
that change things?
It would change things because I would blame my dad.
Okay.
And
And where
I
would
think
you
that's
then?
that's a hypothetical, obviously, but I think if that was the case where my dad fucked up in like a sense where my dad was the initial, because I know they're both at fault. My dad mostly for the whole marriage is my dad mostly the drunk, narcissistic, anger, that person, and my mom was always the peacemaker. And then all of a sudden, when she did this drastic, hurtful thing, and even though my dad kind of pushed her to the limit, she's the one that kind of did the initial thing that kind of broke apart the family. I kind of blamed her for it, and I've just kind of been holding on to that. And I don't know how, because I want to forgive her, but I feel like, and obviously I have to forgive her, but I also want to reconcile with her. I just don't know how to do that with all the feelings I have inside and her not acknowledging it because she refuses to believe she did anything wrong. And that's kind of the issue. Like, I don't know. I don't know what you think about that.
When was the last time that you told her that you feel this way? If you don't speak to her now, how long's that been going on?
I last seen her Christmas, and that's when I really talked to her, but I didn't really talk to her because even when I do speak to her, it was like we don't talk about anything. Oh yeah, how's this? Da, da, da. The last time I told her I felt that way when I was drunk at her feet, you know, a year or so ago after my dad died.
I don't think you're going to be able to get the reconciliation you want unless you put more effort into getting it. She might have feelings about this that are more similar to yours than you realize, but because you guys aren't talking about it, you're not going to appreciate that about each other. So I think you should let her know that you're feeling this way. And that's going to involve at least giving her a phone call or sending a message or something. And if you need one of your siblings there with you to try and help the conversation flow a bit or take some of the tension away, I think that would be good because I guess some of them understand how you're feeling really well because they might feel a similar way.
Yeah.
Some of your siblings in a different mental space about this from where you are? Do some of them feel more angry, less angry, the same?
I feel like the younger kids don't really feel like that because they were so young when it happened. They were like 5, 6, you know.
Mm.
But the older ones that are around my age, my younger brother, everyone up to a certain point, they all feel this way against my mom. I guess it varies. I took it very personally because my whole thing was like, I'm the family man. You know, my family is important to me. I love my mom and dad, my siblings, and then that kind of got wrecked. And I guess it's a prideful thing too because when that happened, I couldn't say that like to my kids, like to my friends. It was like, oh, why don't you hang out with anyone? It's like, oh, I like hanging out with my siblings, but that's not really true. That wasn't really true anymore. My family kind of got broken apart. Um, but the ones that are more positive towards the thought of my mom and what she did is my two older sisters. One who's divorced with 3 kids and who's kind of got off on the deep end, you know, tattoos everywhere and not in a good mental state. I don't want to go into personal issues with her, but they're the older ones that are kind of okay with it are dealing with like personal things in their own lives, where they can empathize. So one of my older sisters, divorced, 3 kids, similar situation to my mom, and so that's why they could kind of emphasize. So I understand that. And same thing with my other sister. She had a lot of other boyfriends and things didn't work out, and now she has a child of her own too. So uh, yeah, they have a different perspective on it, I guess I could say.
I think they'd be good to talk to help you see things the way your mum will probably see them. But more importantly, to the extent that there is some anger left over, I think we have to get rid of it somehow. You're right. Forgiveness is going to be the main thing. Otherwise, this is going to eat away at you for years. And the main thing stopping that from happening at the moment is the not speaking, because it's not good not to speak to one of your parents. Think about how you felt when your dad died, even though you'd made lots of effort with him, you told him that you loved him, and you'd be going to see him. So I guess it sounds like from that, there's pretty much no regrets, right? You behaved how you wanted to towards him. You told him what you wanted to say. You showed him with your actions that this is
Yeah.
what he meant to you.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to think of that moment when you got the phone call. I know it's painful. Think of that moment when you got the phone call for your dad, and imagine that in 10 years' time, 15 years' time, when it's your mum, 20 years' time, whatever it might be, and you've had a decade or two, however long the time is, it will come one day, and you've got this big separation starting from last Christmas, and all that silence between the two of you. Think how that's going to feel when you were saying to your dad, who you were regularly visiting, messaging, saying that you loved him, you wished you'd spent more time together. Now, it's going to be worse when it comes to your mum. The grief will be something that hits in a different way, because you'll be having regret over your own actions as well. Whereas with your dad, it seems like you did right by him and you can't control his behavior, right? That's not within your power. You can show him things from yourself towards him that you want to communicate, but you can't control him. Now, you can't control your mom either, but you can control how you act towards her. And this is what needs to happen, because otherwise, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We don't want that. There'll be too many years of holding on to either anger or fear of what's going to happen if you get back in touch with her. It sounds like to me you're someone who can get through a lot of difficult stuff that other people would get broken by: drugs, drink, sleeping around, drifting away from church, having the courage to go back to it. You don't shy away from doing tough stuff.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. And I've wanted to do it. It's just it's kind of like I have this against her. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to you and I have a good reason for it. And I don't know how to just go from that because that's how I kind of treated her since like the divorce happened. And I don't know how to just get back with it because then I feel like I have to apologize when she hasn't really apologized to me.
Well, hold
And
on a sec. Hold on. I know she hasn't. I know. But sometimes you have to be the first one to do it. Now, I'm not Mr. Perfect. Nobody is except Jesus, yeah?
yeah,
So, as hard as it might be, have you got anything to say sorry to your mum about? Regardless of whether she's going to apologize to you, have you got anything to say sorry to her about? Anything on your mind at all?
I guess, just being kind of like a disobedient kid when everything happened. I didn't really listen to my mom when she wanted us to do things like go do the chores. Like, I don't want to do it. And after a certain amount of time, my mom kind of, I feel like she lost her authority around the house because she felt so guilty. So she just kind of doesn't ask us to do anything around the house anymore. So that's something I would apologize for.
That must have made life hard for her, right? Lots of kids, lots of chores.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'd apologize for. And just, it just sucks because I feel like I'm just in a desperate situation and I'm just so like lonely and I want to talk to my mom so bad, but have so much resentment towards her, and it's just hard to kind of like let go of that after like so long and just kind of try to go back.
You're strong enough to do it though. From what you told me already, you can do this. The resentment is not something you want hanging around you. It's been nearly a year now already. You don't want to be sitting here before next Christmas feeling the same way. You know how you did the sober October?
Yeah,
Felt better by the end, yeah?
yeah,
And you like the
I've,
challenge.
yeah.
Why don't we come up with the challenge for your relationship with your mum? When's the last time you sent her a message or called her? A year ago? About?
I don't initiate contact with her.
Okay. Well, let's do a big thing. Let's say that just like sober October, there'll be a time period. You can tell me what you think is reasonable. There'll be a time period where you can initiate contact and also try and keep it going. If, and I think it's very unlikely, if she does just give you the cold shoulder, I don't think this will happen. But if it does, you're not going to give up. You're just going to keep trying again. And I think you should tell your siblings that you want to do this as well, because some of them are going to be feeling the same way, and just say that you're going to need their support too. And you don't want to go on like this.
It seems like it's not that hard, and it's not. I, but it is at the same time. And like, no, like, yeah, that sounds reasonable. It seems reasonable. And like, I talk to her, and I just don't know what I'm supposed to talk to her about, right? Because I feel like I can't just talk about the weather with her or work because I want to talk to her about the issues that matter to me. The reason why I'm kind of staying away from her, right? And I don't know if that would be kind of appropriate for me to just kind of like start talking about whatever and then kind of jump into like the deep end. But I don't know how that progression's supposed to go.
I think you should open up by saying you're sorry for the way things have turned out since you last spoke to her last Christmas around then. Just say you're sorry it's been so long since you've spoken, and then leave it at that. See if she responds. If she doesn't, then you can go back and tell her some of the things that are on your mind, like you told me about not doing the chores when she asked you to, and just say that thinking about those times, although you were hurting a lot, you realized that she was as well. And the way you behaved isn't something that you're proud of now. You were just a kid then. And thinking about it now, you would do something different if you could go back in time and explain how you felt when you got the call about your dad. I wonder how your mum felt when she found out about your dad going, because that's someone she gave a lot of years of her life to, yeah?
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of got mad at her about this when it happened too, because she didn't show any emotion. But my sister-in-law, my oldest brother's wife, kind of told me like the dad that you know that died yesterday died like 7, 8 years ago to her. And I was like, that makes sense because why else would she leave someone if she has 10 kids with them and she was able to just leave and get married after all that time? So I guess in my mom's eyes, my dad was already kind of dead to her in that sense. So she didn't really have anything to mourn because she already mourned it that much long ago.
I think the point of connection between you and your mum for this conversation that has to happen is that you need to take that pain that you felt when you got that phone call, and you need to imagine that there was a day long before your dad passed, but I'm sure she felt big impact when you really did pass. A day long before, where your mum felt something similar, combined with the fear of the family breaking down and her having all the kids and the problem of managing the household, etc. And I think her feelings about all this probably run a lot deeper than she was showing, because it's a really frightening thing to have to cope with, being brokenhearted and having all that responsibility. So my guess is that both of you losing someone, father, husband, that's something in common. The family falling apart, that's something in common. She won't be feeling good about not having spoken to her son for so long, just like you're not feeling good about not having spoken to your mom. But you wouldn't have to let go of the need for her to be the one to apologize first. You just have to do the right thing regardless and accept that you can only control your behavior in this.
Yeah. And you're right about that. It is eating me inside. Like that's probably like the number one thing, to be honest. Like I'm getting back on track. I'm going to church. I'm like trying to do everything, working out, eating healthy, doing all the things it's supposed to be a good, proper man and future husband. And the one thing that brings me down is just thinking about my mom and how I can't bring myself to talk to her about it. And it's just drives me nuts because it's like every time I go and there's a priest talking about forgiveness, and it just kind of it stabs in your heart every time they say that and they're preaching because it's like I'm just like, no, I don't want, I don't want to. But yeah, yeah, that's what I have to do, and I'll have to find ways to go about it. But yeah, you're right. You're right.
It is hard. It's a hard thing to do. It's okay to say that it's hard. We don't have to pretend that it's not. But the fact that it's hard is what makes it important and a good challenge for you as a man, that we don't want to sulk about it and be spiteful or proud. All those are things that we need to get rid of as far as possible. And you can pray and ask for help with that. The reason it hurts when the priest says it is because it's true, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then something specific like Sober October, where we say, even if as a start, 21st of November now, as a minimum, definitely before we get to the festive period, definitely before Christmas, this needs to have happened. I would say give yourself even a week to think about it, and then try and start it by 1st of December. And then let's try and keep some kind of contact going, message, phone call, whatever it is. And we're going to be buying her a Christmas present this year for sure, at least sending a card. Let's try and keep something going for the whole of December.
Yeah.
And turn this around, and then next year is going to be better, because you know what dead ends are like, from the Tinder, the drugs, the drink. You know
Yeah.
where they lead. And it already hurts now after a year going down this road, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You want it to be 2 years, 10 years? Because at some point you got to turn it around. You need the strength to turn it around.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a numbers game, and it's just going to add up, get worse.
Yeah. I guess the longer things go, the worse things get, which is kind of interesting how that works because you think the further away you get from it, the less bad it gets, but it kind of like an all-in game where like the more time you spend resenting it, it's like, oh, I wasted all this time resenting that it feels stupid to go back and forgive. So
Yep,
I guess if you do it
that's it.
sooner, it's better.
All the big things in life tend to happen little by little. There's that scene in Dostoevsky's novel, The Brothers Karamazov, where the old lady's talking about how she lost her faith and doesn't really know how, little by little. but then something big happens because of it. And you've experienced that in a bad way, but we can make it happen in a good way too. But it's going to start with something little that's going to be painful to start with, which is initiating contact and not expecting her to say sorry first, because you don't need that. You know,
Yeah.
like two little kids have had an argument. You say sorry. No, you say sorry. You say sorry. The bigger one is the one who just doesn't need that and just
Yeah.
stamps on the pettiness
Be
and
the
says,
bigger
"No,
person.
look, I'm sorry."
Yeah.
I want to come back to the age 13, 14 to what is it, 19, 20? How long was all that time on video games? We're talking nearly a decade of 6 hours a day.
Uh, I would say so, yeah, honestly. Obviously those are kind of like intermingled. So sometimes it was video games, sometimes it was Netflix. Most of the time it was video games.
Yeah.
But as I went to like, college and stuff, and that kind of occupied all my time. I got a part-time job. It took less and less time, but that was still like my main dopamine hit,
Yeah. I was
my
wondering
main
about that.
my main hobby,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of what I would go to for the most part.
Yeah. That
Uh,
it changes your brain.
yeah,
Yep. You can't spend that long on an activity without having actual physical changes, but they're not permanent. I'm just wondering, free time now, what do you tend to do? Do you still find yourself gravitating towards video games?
honestly, I will admit something that like since my dad died, and I went on this whole tirade of drinking and smoking weed and women and sex, and now that I stopped all that, I have zero interest in doing anything. So most of the time, I'm just listening to podcasts all day, whether it's like Bishop Barron or you or Timothy Gore. I'm just kind of like, I just like listening to you guys talk all the time. So when I come home, I just kind of cook my supper, work out when I find the opportunity to do so, and then I just kind of listen still. Um, because I don't have any friends to do things outside of the house. So most of the things I do is what I can do inside the home,
Mm.
or the apartment. So I don't really know what other things to do. And because I have zero interest in doing anything except, play board games with my siblings, because I had some of them over this weekend. And I went over to my brother's place on Sunday to go play board games because I actually like that. I like playing the board games with them, kind of hanging out, talking, and do that. But I don't know what to do with myself when I'm alone. So I just listen to podcasts all the time. Obviously, it's a better habit than whether it's porn or uh, all that stuff, that negativity. That's just a waste of time. But I still feel like a loser in a sense where like, sure, I replaced it with something more positive, but I'm still just sitting at home listening to stuff. So I don't really know what to replace that time with.
Well, we got to think what being human is about. Like, what are we intended to do? And it's ultimately about relationships and connections with people. So you can listen to podcasts and it's good to the extent it helps you to understand things and get a better appreciation of what life's all about.
Right.
But as a man, you are really intended for your own family life, wife, kids, relationship, community. And we need to start taking some steps in that direction. And it's good that you've got a really strong bond with your siblings and you enjoy hanging out with them, because that's one thing to be really grateful for about your family, isn't it? That there's 10 siblings
Yeah.
and your mom went through all of that.
Yeah. I will
Childbirth
say,
10 times.
yeah, I'll say with that, I'm close with like most, like half of them, and the other ones I'm kind of like, I'm not negative towards them, but we're not really close for like, just age gap reasons. But there's two of them that I don't really talk to as well as my mom. So that's another thing that I'll have to deal with eventually too.
Yep,
Uh,
definitely. We need to
yeah,
add that in. And
yeah,
then we need to start breaking away from the habits of loneliness and being standoffish with people that got built over that near enough 10 years of video gaming. And why don't we start with the fact that you enjoy playing board games? Do you play chess or anything like that?
I play chess, and I'm pretty good at it too
Yeah.
for the people that I play against. But um, my older brother, he kind of wants to get back into playing chess because he only started playing a little bit,
Yeah.
but he's not that good at it. And the brother I live with, he plays chess too. So, but we,
Okay.
yeah, so we don't really. He plays
So
video games
you live
more.
with your brother and he plays chess, yeah? Why
Yeah.
don't we see if there's a chess club where they have meetups and you can play games in person near where you live, somewhere you can drive to? And let's just start doing that. Meet a few people there. You've got the shared interest. It'll probably be quite fun, competitive, and then that's
Less
some
degenerate.
connections. Yeah, some connections there, and then we'll see where that leads to. And you go into the gym a few times a week.
I don't go to gym because I have too much like social anxiety. Like that's another thing. Like it's not just my like what I've been through. It's just me, my personality as a person. I don't really know how to interact with people. So I just have like a workout man. I kind of just do high intensity kind of like free uh body workouts,
Mhm.
right? Body weight workouts.
Yeah, well,
And
look,
so I do that.
I don't agree with you that you don't know how to interact with people because you just interacted with me fine for an hour and we've only just met and you talked about some stuff that a lot of people would be scared to mention. And I haven't thought for a second, this guy is anxious or can't interact with me. I've enjoyed listening to you. And what you need to do is just stop seeing yourself that way. I think you should get a gym membership and go somewhere a couple of times a week, 2, 3, maybe even 4 times, and just say hi to some people.
Yeah.
If you keep going, eventually you'll see the same faces. Starts with a hello, and then you get chatting to people. Could be guys, could be girls, but we just keep it going,
Yeah.
and eventually that anxiety is going to fade away because again, it's one of those things that builds little by little, and you have to attack it the same way too. One thing you can do straight away that I think would help you is when you're buying groceries from the store, make a bit more of an effort to talk to the cashier just at the checkout, ask how their day's been. Get into conversations with strangers like that a bit more often, and let's just try and make some people smile. And you'll see that you've got the social skills that currently you don't think you've got. You do have them, but video games don't let you show them, do they?
No, not really, not particularly.
Yeah. So it's easy for you to start believing that you can't do it because like so many things, it's use it or lose it. You've got a mental image of yourself not doing these things, but we know you can.
Yeah. And I was gonna say that like I was able to talk this, but I was super nervous coming into this, so I was just listening to like Eminem kind of like hype music, and before I came into this, it's, I was just like, coming into this, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna be loosey goosey, and when you opened up and I seen your face, I was like, oh, it's real now. Um, but yeah, so I feel like I've comported myself pretty good now. I guess once things got rolling, it got a lot easier to talk about.
Yeah. Look, you can hold this kind of conversation for over an hour, a minute or two, small talk with a stranger. That's not going to be a big deal for you.
No,
Let's just
no.
start doing it more often, make a point of it. And if you've got any other hobbies similar to the board games that you think could get you out, meeting some more people, making some friends beyond your siblings, any thoughts?
Yeah, I go bowling every Tuesday, with my brother and my one of my older sisters, and we kind of hang out there and we go bowling with other people. So that's one thing. But again, I kind of just on my phone when I go, I bowl and kind of talk to my inner circle, but I don't really talk to anyone else out there. So I guess I can make an effort to talk to other people that are bowling.
Yeah. And you could even go bowling without your siblings. Make a point of going and trying to get into a team or club and just do it with strangers and make some friends that way. Because I guess you must be pretty good at bowling from the coaching you had when you were a kid.
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty good at bowling. I haven't been doing too well the past few weeks, but it's a grind. And I plan on joining a ball hockey tournament in the spring because that's one thing I've loved. Hockey is not my number one sport, but we were never able to afford it, but ball hockey is way cheaper, so I plan on joining that. And I'll be alone in a team full of guys that I don't know, so that'll kind of be helpful. So I'm kind of trying to get the courage to do that too.
Yeah, that'll be really good. And then I think that with your gym and your exercise, getting into some barbell training where we've got a definite measure of progress, like the number of pounds on the bar or the number of reps you're doing with a fixed load, we
Yeah,
can see something concrete, the effort you put in, the results you get. Sometimes it's easier to build your confidence that way than if you're just doing your bodyweight exercises at home, because you can set yourself things like a couple of months time, I want all my lifts to go up by 10%. And
yeah,
then when you see you can do that, it's just reminding you that if you put effort into stuff, then the world gives you results, and you can apply that to lots of areas of your life, including a relationship with your mom, relationship with siblings you don't get on with, things at work, social life. It's all about effort and reward.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. Again, everything is kind of like overwhelming because it's like I know I'm supposed to do these things, but it's it's scary because it's just I just always like, oh, I'm antisocial, so I don't do that. But I know I'm not going to be able to like interact with people or learn how to speak with strangers if I don't do that. But so I kind of just give the excuse to just stay home and do nothing, even though I know that's not good for me long term. So I guess having that motivation, like you said, is a good place to start, especially the hardest one, which would be talking to my mom. So
Mm. I think we attack the big one first. By the
yeah,
1st of December, I want you to email me saying that you've done it. You initiated contact and you understand that you can't control how she's going to react. But worst case scenario, let's say she ignored you. I don't think she will. Let's say she did. Then
yeah,
we're just going to try calling again, try messaging again. And then you know that you've done everything you can, and you're going to let your siblings know that this is what you want as well. And then once you've overcome that big hurdle, we'll add in some of the small stuff as well, like the chess, the gym, sports team, bowling team, whatever it might be. And you're not really antisocial. You know you can behave in an antisocial way, and
yeah,
you can live like that for a lot longer than most people can. Some people would find it unbearable. So you can cope with it, but it doesn't mean it's good for you.
yeah. I think it's one of those things where it's like I'm not really antisocial. Like I'm good at one-on-one conversations. But when I'm talking with if I'm talking to one person in a group of people with all the pressure of people looking at me, it's difficult. Um, but even on one-on-one conversations, it's the initial talk and the introduction that's hard. And then once I get into it, it's not hard anymore.
Mm.
But I feel that way the entire time I'm having a conversation with someone if there's a crowd and everyone's listening, right? Because I feel like I don't want to say something that's controversial or whatever. So that's kind of like the uh, part of me. But I guess I don't know if that's like a personality trait or that's just like what I'm used to because it's like kind of PC woke world where I don't want to say something that will offend, the blue-haired feminist in the corner, and I don't want to like start anything. So I feel like if I can't speak my mind around people, then I just keep my mouth shut. Um,
What's the worst that can happen though, right? You say something that you think is true and someone disagrees with and they get offended.
yeah, yeah. It's not. I'm just not a very not contrarian, but competitive person. I'm more passive, and I don't like conflict, especially since I've avoided it for like the past 7, 8 years. So I'm kind of like averse to it. So anytime someone's getting mad at me or all those feelings well up from my childhood that I just kind of don't want to deal with. So I kind of just avoid it. Um, but again, that's something I can't really avoid my whole life, especially if I'm gonna have wife and kids and some idiot at the bar or whatever is gonna start talking shit or whatever. So I gotta learn to be more comfortable with conflict without it escalating to a more dangerous situation.
Yeah, and also you need to deal with conflict when it's small and manageable, because if you don't, what's likely to happen is it'll build up into big ones that are then going to become these huge obstacles in your mind and in your heart that are going to need you to muster up some real courage to try and tackle, like we're about to do with contact with your mum. Whereas if you take the small battles as they come, you won't ever get in this situation again.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with being scared to talk to people in a group, because unless we're doing it at least some of the time, reminding yourself that you can do it and you've got the skills, there'll come a point where you'll be thinking, what? Wait, I haven't interacted in a group for how many years now? This can't go on. And then the first time after all that time doing it, it's going to be a lot worse than if we just do it next week.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel at work, because at work everyone's kind of like a liberal kind of. I live in a liberal town, so there's no one that really shares close to my views, and I'm kind of like far right on the spectrum of like compared to the status quo of the day. So I just gotta avoid talking about anything when politics come up because I just know that it someone's gonna look at me and then we're gonna start up conversations and whatnot. So usually I keep it to like philosophical topics that it's because that's easy when you're just talking about like relativism and what is truth and all that stuff. It's just like an interesting kind of sophistry convo, which is easier to be because it's like, oh, we're just talking about intellectual stuff. But when it comes to like politics or like Trump, all these things in the world where someone brings it up, I just kind of don't talk about it because I know my opinion is not going to be very popular, even though I know it's true. Um, so
You're doing the person that you're speaking to a favor though, by giving them the opportunity to hear something that even though they might not like it in the moment, when they think back on it, months, maybe even a year or so, maybe that was an important thing for them to hear.
yeah, if I'm the only one that sold it to them.
Yeah. But also, you're a smart guy. You like listening to podcasts, you like reading, you like thinking. That's what your mind's for. And
Yeah,
we don't want you just staying quiet the whole time.
yeah. I kind of prefer it though. It's a bad mindset, and I gotta get over it. But I've been like trained this way for like the past 7, 8 years, even when I was a little kid, to just be polite and no, only speak when you're spoken to, that type of thing. Hush, hush. And now that I'm an adult and I kind of have to, interact with the world, I just don't know how to do that. Anyways, I do know how to do that considering this conversation, but it's just the initial hurdle that's the hard part.
Mm.
Um, yeah, but yeah, I'll work on that, and it should get better, especially after this talk where you're kind of like convicting me to do certain things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So look, it's been good talking to you. And I think that what you shared will help people listening. And I want that email by the end of November telling me that contacts happened.
yeah, yeah. I'll let you know. I'll get to work on that. There's a lot to think about, but it's something I need to get off my chest. So I know I'll have to do it eventually. I just hope I can do it in a week.
Yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Good to talk to you.
yeah, yeah. It was good
I'm
talking
looking.
to you. Appreciate everything.
Yeah,
And
welcome.
yeah,
I'm looking forward to hearing how it goes.
absolutely. I'll let you know.
All right, excellent. Take care.
Okay, you too. Bye.
All right, bye.